So the UFC just announced the Seattle card lineup on February the 22nd, and it is really good. These are some certified, as Dana White would say, badass fights, ladies and gentlemen. So, let's break it down. And the main event, Cejudo versus Henry Cejudo. Interesting matchup. I think a lot of people would have much rather see, Henry Cejudo versus Jose Aldo or Cejudo versus Marlon Vera. But this is the matchup that they've decided to go with. And it'll be a good fight nonetheless. Cejudo always is in good fights, and so is Henry Cejudo. But I do think Yong's going to win. I'm leaning towards a decision because I just don't see Cejudo getting finished. But Cejudo is very outdated in his style. His striking style is very one-dimensional. It's just a very basic karate point style with a little bit of a blitz 1-2, right? And he doesn't really mix his striking and his wrestling together that well. And when he wrestles, it's just takedowns. It's not ground and pound. It's not submissions. It's just takedowns. And I think, Cejudo is shown to struggle in fighters that mix it up. Now, while Cejudo can wrestle and strike, you need a little bit of something a little bit unorthodox. Something like a Sandhagen who has great footwork, or Jan who just has immensely fluid strikes to takedowns and excellent ground and pound, or a Kyler Phillips who has a bit of a funky, goofy striking style. But Cejudo just doesn't have that. And I can see Cejudo kind of just trying to blitz his way in and feint with that karate stance, and then Cejudo just planting one on him. And not necessarily, dropping him, but, hitting him solid and getting him to maybe be a lot more passive on the feet. And eventually I just think Yong will, minorly outpoint him. I think Cejudo will have some success. He'll win a round. He might win 2. But I do see Cejudo winning this fight by decision, 49-46, 48-47. Bit underwhelming on Cejudo's end. He'll likely retire, and it will be a little bit just flat, I feel. But I'm excited to see the matchup nonetheless. Now, the co-main event, Rob Font versus Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz coming back after 2 years. Why isn't he fighting Aldo? Why isn't he fighting Cejudo? Nobody knows. His last fight, knockout loss to Marlon Cheeto Vera, he looked really good in that fight. I'm gonna be real. He looked really good in that fight. Cheeto just timed a head kick and is very good at finding power shots. Rob Font beat Kyler Phillips. Rough first round, got taken down and held down, but then came through, defended the takedowns in the second and third to win a decision. Now, a lot of people are under the assumption that Font will win. I actually don't think so. For once. At first I was like, Font's going to win pretty easily. But now that I'm sitting here and think about it, why? Font is primarily a boxer, right? He pretty much almost never throws kicks, so Cruz doesn't have to worry about stuff coming around the center line. He doesn't have to worry about leg kicks or, ducking into knees or anything. And primarily, Font's main weapon is the jab and the cross, and a double jab cross. And I feel like for Cruz's head movement, where he's never on the center line, I think that's truly excellent. And Font simply can't defend takedowns. He can't. I know he did against Kyler Phillips. Kyler fumbled the bag really, really badly in that fight. And I don't expect, I don't expect Cruz to control him heavily, but he'll get takedowns in close rounds that will matter. Look, right? Font got held down by a one-armed Sandhagen for the entire fight and could not do anything. I know Sandhagen's good, but to get absolutely dominated in the wrestling by Sandhagen, I'm not trusting a takedown defense. And while Cruz's takedowns aren't fantastic, and they haven't been for a while, I think they're enough to work against Font. And people would say Font's chinny, Cruz is chinny. So is Font. They're not that different in age. They both have had significant injuries and taken significant damage. Stylistically, I actually think it's a pretty good fight for Cruz. So I'm going to go Cruz split decision. Let's go Cruz split decision 29-28. third fight on the main card going down a bit, Anthony Hernandez versus Brendan Allen. I've already talked about this fight before, so I'll keep it quick. I think that Brendan Allen does not have advanced enough striking to capitalize on Hernandez's weaknesses, and I also think he struggles when it comes to fight IQ. He's making mistakes against Jacob Malkoon and, struggling somewhat with Paul Craig and making terrible decisions against Nassourdine Imavov. I just see Hernandez taking him to a decision. I think so. I think it'll be a decision. Allen is tough to finish it. But yeah, I've got Hernandez winning, and this is a rematch, and Hernandez did win the last fight as well back in LFA. Next up, Curtis Blades versus, let me check his name again, Rizvan Kuniev, a roid cheat from the PFL. Debuting against a top 5, I believe, heavyweight. Yeah, I'm going with Blades. I do not care. And I think most people are under this assumption very well. We've seen it with Abus. We've seen it before. Dagestanis coming in, the debut, high-ranked matchup. Well, not Dagestanis, but just overhyped Russian fighters. We've seen it before. It's not going to work. Blades is extremely, extremely good. He has only lost to Aspinall, Ngannou, and Lewis. And against Aspinall, he was doing well. And against Lewis, he was straight up winning that fight. Every time Blades has lost, you can sit there and say he was doing really well in that fight. And again, you're a roid cheat coming from the PFL. I don't really trust you to win a fight. I don't even trust him to make it to the fight. Imagine if he gets popped before the fight. That'd be funny. But yeah, Curtis Blades. Yeah, let's go ground and pound. Curtis Blades, ground and pound. KO, round 2. Now, Steve Garcia versus Edson Barboza. Excellent matchmaking, excellent fight. Glad that Steve Garcia is getting a shot at the rankings. I believe Edson Barboza is still ranked at number 15, 14, around that range. I see this fight going one of two ways, or one way with two results. Either Steve Garcia bullies and pressures and breaks Barboza and KOs him in the second or third round. He will not go a decision. Garcia will break Barboza. I think he will, and I think he'll finish him. Garcia has great finishing potential, and I think he can inflict his will on Barboza. Or Edson's getting beat up, he's against the cage, sort of like Billy Quarantillo, and then he just fucking sparks Garcia out cold, pulls it out of the bag. But I'm not going to rely on someone's random KO ability. So, Steve Garcia, round 3 KO. Now, Jean Silva versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. Interesting matchup for Silva. I don't think a lot of people wanted to take a fight against him. I remember there was word about him fighting Josh Emmett in Florida. I don't think Emmett turned it down. I just think he was still injured. But a lot of people expected a bit higher ranked of an opponent. But Melsik is still very good. He's a great kicker, very dynamic, and he's got decent enough ground game. So he could pose an interesting threat. But he's coming off, I believe, a long layoff, and he's had a couple injuries, and he's had a couple dud performances. And Jean Silva is damn good. He's really good defensively in the striking. And while the, wild kicking karate style of Melsik could give him trouble, I just trust Jean to eventually find those openings and capitalize massively. He is buzzsawed through pretty good opponents. Weston Wilson, yeah, right? Charles Jourdain, that's a good win. That's a really good win. And then Drew Dober, upper weight class on short notice, rocking him multiple times. I'm trusting Jean Silva to get into the top 10 pretty easily. When we start getting around top 5 area, when he starts fighting, someone like Lopez, someone like Volkanovski, or who else? Even a Yair. That's when things can start to get tricky for him. But until then, I think he's going to do pretty damn well. So, let's go Jean Silva. I'm going to go by sub. He subbed me before. I'm going to go Jean Silva by guillotine. So anyway, guys, that was just my reaction, thoughts, predictions on the UFC Seattle card. Hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. Feel free to put your thoughts down below and enjoy the rest of your day.